50 years ago, people were rocking around the clock to an almost forgotten band, one that may have done more than any other to put rock and roll on the map. Once again, CNN's Brian Todd now with the story of Bill Haley and the Comets.
These guys were not part of Live 8, but maybe they should have been. Some prominent names on the bill at Live 8 got their earliest inspiration from this group that now looks ready to shake it up at your local bingo hall.
2, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, rock.
5, 6, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, rock.
9, 10, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, rock. We're going to rock around the clock tonight.
The early 50s, 7 guys from around Philadelphia, led by a transplanted Midwesterner with a spit curl, hit on something.
Gonna rock around the clock tonight.
They begin as a country and western band wearing cowboy suits, but fuse that with rhythm and blues.
You start seeing it come together about 1951, 1952 with Bill Haley and the Saddlemen, which later became Bill Haley and the Comets.
Around this time, someone's dubbed their music rock and roll.
I don't think any of us realized the impact this was really going to have at the time.
March 1955. The Comets' hit Rock Around the Clock makes the soundtrack of the movie everyone's talking about, the teenage rebellion flick Blackboard Jungle. In early July 1955, exactly 50 years ago, Rock Around the Clock makes it to the top of the Billboard chart, the first rock and roll song ever to hit #1. Rock is catapulted and will never turn back. But it doesn't really hit these guys for a couple of weeks.
We just really didn't realize until it was being played all over the place, and we were getting calls from Ed Sullivan.
Now, more in my groove than perhaps is this #1 band, the #1 record seller in the band field, Bill Haley and his Comets. So strike up the band there, boys.
Rock Around the Clock stays at #1 for 8 weeks, sells millions. Today, it remains the 3rd biggest selling single ever. Dick Clark calls it the national anthem of rock and roll.
We're going to rock around the clock tonight. We're going to rock, broad daylight.
The Comets would have other hits, but as quickly as they build their success, it crumbles. Larger bands give way to rising solo acts like Chuck Berry and Elvis, with more of the edge teenagers are looking for. By 1963, the Comets break up, but not before leaving their imprint on music. In a European tour in the late 50s, they play before audiences that include Paul McCartney, Pete Townsend, and Graham Nash. All would later say that experience defined them.
It's really an honor that we know that we inspired a lot of the English groups to go on and become the big stars that they became.
Most of the Comets go on to other careers, all but forgotten in rock lore. Bill Haley dies of a heart attack in 1981. When the 5 surviving Comets reunite years later, they don't recognize each other. But somehow they regain relevance, get popular again in Europe, and now these 5 grandfathers in their 70s and 80s are booked solid and winning new fans in the U.S. not even alive 50 years ago.
Man, you guys rock.
We hear it all.
And that says
That's
it.
the biggest compliment we could ever have is by young people saying, you guys rock.
Gonna rock around the clock tonight. Yeah!
Our thanks there to CNN's Brian Todd. On this note, those seemingly forever young Comets will be at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory tomorrow to perform for the scientists who guided a space probe to a collision with that other comet.